In this segment, we're going to take a look at the Layout drop-down menu, and that's found up here at the top of your workspace. And when I select the Layout drop-down menu, you can see that there's two main options. One is Array, and the second one is a two-point copy, and so we'll look at both. I'll start with the Array. And what we can see here is we have two different options. Basically, we have a rectangular array and a circular array, so I will look at both. Now, what this means is we've got a single star as our design, and a rectangular array gives me the ability to control the number of copies horizontally and the number of copies vertically. So why don't I change the number of horizontal copies to be 3, so we'll get 3 stars wide by 2 stars tall, and I've got my spacing set between my horizontal copies at 2 millimeters, but I have no space set between my vertical copies. And you also have options in here to keep the colors together and to clone the objects if possible, and I have both of those selected. So I'll say OK. And right away you can see, oh, there's a little bit of space between my horizontal copies, no space between the vertical copies. And if I zoom out, you'll see, I'll just zoom out a little bit better, that I got 1, 2, 3 wide by 1, 2 tall. So that was the array we created, and you can actually continue to make an array. So now we have 6 stars. If I chose Layout, Array, and did it again, and maybe you want to set, so right now we have 3 wide. If I make 3 more copies, we would end up with 9 wide. And we have 2 tall. If I make 2 more copies, that would give me 8 tall. So basically, if I say OK, you'll see here we end up with a larger amount of stars. And if I count, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 wide by 4 tall. So that's the idea of creating a rectangular array. It's an easy way to duplicate your designs over and over. Now, perhaps what I'll do is use undo and go back to a single star. And this time we'll take a look at the Layout Array, and we'll go to the circular array. And you'll notice right away it tells me that the rotation center of the selection must be different. Now what that means is, I'll just close that and take a little bit closer look at our star. So when you select an object, and I'll go select all, and if I wanted to, I could rotate this object, and when I rotate, it's based upon a rotation center, and that is found right here, and I can actually move that. In other words, just to demonstrate, I can rotate this star by clicking on a corner and rotating, and it rotates around this center point. Now, I'm going to use undo to put that back. If I move the rotation point to, let's say, be right here, and then rotate, see, it rotates around that point. Now I'm going to say undo again, click off. Now, what I wanted to do is show how I could make this star repeat around a circle. So I'm going to select the star, and I'm going to move that rotation point, and what I'm going to do is actually move it down below the star so that we're rotating around. This is the rotation point. Now if I choose Layout and Array, and then choose the circular array, see, now the tool is available to me. And so you have several settings in here. The first one is going to be, you've got this little dial, and I've got it set to make my circle go all the way around. Notice I can click and drag on this to say, well, gee, I only want my circular array to be maybe half a circle. So it starts at 90, ends at 271. And I can move the start or the end of this line. And then I get to set the angle and the step count. And those are basically set, so if I change my angle, my step count will change accordingly. So if I change the angle from 10 to, let's say, I don't know, 20, it changed my step count to 8. So that means I have a new star going every 20 degrees, and it'll take 8 stars to create this half a circle. I'll say OK. And so you can see there what I've got. Now, a couple things of note. I had only selected the blue fill and not both objects, and therefore my array is only half of that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say undo, and this time I'm going to use the Select All tool, and I'll move my rotation point down a little further like this. Now I'm going to choose the Layout option, an array, circular array, And we'll do the full circle, so I'll make my array fill a whole circle, and I'll change my step angle to be, let's say, 30. So that's going to make 12 stars in a circle. And when I say OK, so there you can see what it's done, as it's duplicated both the fill and the outline of my star, and it took 12 copies to make a full circle. So those tools can be very helpful in creating new and interesting layouts in your designs. So that's the rectangular and the circle array tool. Now I'm going to use undo again, and this time we're going to take a look at a different option. So under the layout menu we have the 2-point copy, and this is a way of making new copies of this star and being able to modify them at the same time. And it's basically a two-step process when you choose this 2-point copy. So I'm going to turn it on. The first step is to define how you want to copy this star. So for example, sorry, I need to turn it on. 2-point copy. Oh, I need to select the star first. Sorry. And then choose layout and 2-point copy. And notice it gives me this little crosshair. And so the first step is to define how I want it to copy. In other words, if I wanted to always copy it across the top, I could put a line. So I have to put in 2 points. So I'll put in a point here, and I'll put in a point here. Now I can make my copies. So for example, wherever I draw a line, so I'll put a point down, and as I drag, notice that I can put it at any angle I want to, and the longer I make the line, the bigger it makes my new star. But notice that the star is being created underneath the line that I had created in the first step. So I could create a new star just by clicking once, twice, and I can make as many as I want. Click once, drag, click twice. Click once, drag, click twice. And as many times as I do this step, once, drag, click twice. Now when I right click, it lets go of the tool. So I'm going to do that again. I'm just going to choose undo, 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 undo. Right, there's my star, layout, 2-point copy. The first one is basically to create the directions. So for example, maybe this time I'd like to copy my star across its center. So I'm going to go 1 and 2. Now I can create my new stars. 1. See, now the new star is created across the center of the new star. 1 and 2, and you just, every time it's 1 and 2 to create a new copy of that same shape. And again, if I want to be finished, I right click to let go. So that's how you can use the layout tool to create new layouts and new copies of your objects. Also found under the layout menu are some sequencing options, like to front, to back, or 1 step forward or 1 step backwards. And what that means is, so for example, these stars are going to appear in the object in the order that I created them. But they've been kept with their colors sorted together, because if you remember, we'd had that as one of our check boxes. So basically it's going to do all the light blue stars, and then it's going to do all the dark blue outlines. Well, if I want to, I can select one of these light blue stars and go to the layout and ask it to move that to the front, which would make it be on the very top of everything. So notice what it did. Now this star has been moved after all the dark blue stars. See that? So the idea is the front is the bottom of your sequence tray, and the back is the top of your sequence tray. And you can select any one object or multiple objects of your design and change where they sew by moving them either to the front, to the back, or 1 step forward or 1 step backwards. And the last option just simply says add new objects to the end. And that's where you can clearly see all the new objects were added at the end of my design. And as you add more new objects, they get added to the end as well. So that's the layout toolbar, and how you can use the layout toolbar to create rectangular, circular arrays, and 2-point copies.